All right, guys, we're back. We're MAPD724, and it is the winter 2018 semester, week 3, part 1 of our broadcasts, and we're talking about assignment 2 details. Last week, we started talking about Sprite Kit. We built a little bit of a game, parts of a game. I'm going to continue with that this week, but I'm giving you a new assignment. Again, this is the last part of games that we're going to be doing. It is going to be taking up a couple of weeks more. So we're getting into about week 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of weeks and a bit. Instead of it being due Monday, it'll be due Friday, February the 23rd, just before we go on break. So your break happens the 26th until March 2nd. So this is just before we go on break. This will be due, so you'll have a nice break. Hopefully nothing will be due from me anyway. But this one is a bit more involved. So yes, we're making a game. I don't just want you to think about this as a game, though. It's instructive in that you'll have a chance to learn more coding and a little bit more details. This one is more detailed. It's going to require 3 people, guys. Please don't try and do this on your own or with 2 people. I recommend doing it with 3 because now it says teams of up to 3. I might even accept a team of 4 in this case. I'll tell you right now. And there's a reason for this, because there's a lot of work to do and you got 2 weeks, right? So how does this work? Either alone or as a team. I'm going to put a team of up to 4, even though your document may say up to 3. I'll accept 4. You will create an original 2D arcade game. When I say original, obviously it's going to be based on the stuff that we know how to do. Okay, no one here is a game person, a gamer, but you're going to make a game. You can make a scrolling game, the kind of game that I'm showing you how to make. It's okay to do that. And chances are most of you will. Okay, and that's okay. I don't expect you to be completely original other than the art that you're going to grab. We're going to talk about where to get some of that. I don't expect you to be artists. Don't expect that. I'm not expecting you to sell this game on the App Store, okay, or anything like that. It's not going to be that original, all right? But it's going to be original enough that you'll know how to put together a small game with Sprite Kit, okay? And that'll give you some good experience. There's no other game in this program. You're not going to make games with Android. You're not going to make games with web. You need to at least do 1 or 2 so you've done them, okay? So you've done a few games, you get a couple games, you've done some applications. You're going to have enough banking applications and everything else to drive you crazy, right? So this at least is a little different. So I will allow a scrolling game, a platform game, some kind of tower defense, a 3/4 down adventure, or other classic arcade game that you want to kind of emulate, similar, right? So please run the game by me before you go ahead and start. Puzzle games will not be accepted. So don't try and make a crazy puzzle game. Puzzle games and games like chess and checkers and all that stuff are crazy. You don't have time for that, right? It's too difficult. In fact, anything that has complex AI functionality, please avoid that. No pathfinding, crazy pathfinding or anything like that. I don't expect any of that. This is not this is not the exercise. The exercise is learning how to use Sprite Kit, right? Because on your test, I'm going to test you on Sprite Kit, and I'm going to test you on programmatic views, the stuff we talked about the first day we were back, right? So you need to know about this stuff. That's why I'm giving you an assignment so you can dig in and get it done, right? So when we do your little test in midterm, then you have exposure to Sprite Kit, okay? So menu screen, instruction screen, 1 game level, only 1 game level, okay? Don't go crazy. I don't expect multiple levels or anything like that. And the screens that I'm talking about are going to go transition from one screen to the other. So a menu screen, start, instructions, right? You can see how this would work, right? By the way, I'm not going to stop you from using UI Kit for some of this stuff. So you can combine UI Kit with Sprite Kit to create your menuing and your system, okay? Because if you think about it, the main menu is more of a UI with buttons and labels and everything else you know how to do already. And then you can transition to your game in Sprite Kit that uses Sprite Kit, not the UI Kit that we're normally used to, all right? So you can do that, and we'll talk about how to incorporate those elements together. Now, it says you must use your own graphic and sound assets. That means you must get them, okay? So you can get them. There's going to be places where you can go. I'm going to share this with you now. There's a place called Open Game Arts. Open Game Arts. Game Arts, there it is. Open Game Art is a a website that allows you to download simple graphics and sound assets. As long as you give them credit, you can use their assets. They're okay with it. And you can search for stuff that's on this website. Okay, so it has a lot of things like art and tiles and a bunch of stuff that you can use to make your game. So this is definitely one area you can use, one site. I'm also going to tell you that Reiner's tile sets is another one. Let me just put this on. I'll drag and drop and put this on Slack for you, so that way you have it, because I want you to have this stuff, right? So you can always go back. So there's Open Game Art. That's the link for there. There's also Reiner's tile sets. So Reiner's tile sets. There's also some 2D art and stuff like that that you can also grab. You can see that you can get things like sound effects, and there's also graphics of different kinds. There's 2D graphics. There's some 3D graphics this guy's done. It's a popular site for free to use graphics as long as you credit the creator, you're okay to use it. All right, so there's another one. I'll put the 2D one in there so you can see the, this is a site that's out in, I guess, a German site. All right, so kind of really cool, some graphics you can grab. You can also make your own sounds, and there's a couple of sites like that. One of them, which is online, it requires Flash. So it requires Flash. Let me just enable it. Allows you to make your original little sound effects for free again, right? So I want to make a little sound, you know, like a power up. Let me make it a little louder here so you guys can hear it, right? So here's an explosion, some kind of hit. These are retro sounds, right? Jump, right? Some kind of a pickup, you know, whatever. And you can make your own sounds by just clicking here. And then what you can do is you can save to disk and use those sounds in your game. Okay, so very simple stuff. So this is another one, bfxr.net, that you can make sounds, again, of your own and save them. It's a really cool little utility you can use for this kind of stuff. So really simple. And others. All right, so please go up online and take a look, and you can find your little retro sounds and graphics, and it doesn't have to be your own. You don't have to be an artist. You may have to do some minor manipulation because you have to fit it for your game, right? I mean, that's what it's going to be. So you can use things like Sketch and other things, Photoshop and other tools to go do a little bit of pixel art. And that's why I'm telling you, you need about 3 or 4 people on this project over the next couple of weeks, because there's enough work for everybody. There's also documentation requirements that I'm going to require of you this time around, because you need to plan a little bit. If you don't plan properly for a game, you will never finish. Never. Right? It's one of those. So I've given you specific requirements, but I also want you to plan out what your game is going to look like. So don't just make a game that, if you've never look at some games that are like 2D games out there. So go on and take a look at some, you know, classic 2D games, like search for it. So I say classic, you know, 2D arcade games, right? Take a look at some of those. And there's some really good videos. Go to the videos and see if you can find some classic arcade games that inspire you, all right? Now, you also might do arcade shooter games or shooter arcade games, 2D shooter, because those are easier ones than if you do some kind of weird arcade game with like a role-playing game. Please don't make a role-playing game, okay? Don't try and do that kind of stuff. It's impossible. You don't know. You have 2 weeks, okay? This isn't like a session where think about it as more of a game jam, okay, than anything else. For 2 weeks to make a game, it's crazy. It's a lot of work. Now I'm giving you some of the code. I'm not going to just say go, right? You can use my code. The stuff I've given you, the examples I've shown you last week, and the examples I'm showing you this week. It's a good starter. It's a good way of starting off and doing stuff. So if you use my code, just credit me, say Tom's original code, modified by us, whatever, and go, right? It's okay. I'm okay with that. So take a look at some of these sites, like 10 classic shoot 'em up video games. Take a look. Maybe you'll get an inspiration about what you're making, right? But don't try and, I'm not going to tell you right now that it might be a good thing to make something completely original that no one's ever played before Unless you're truly a gamer and you have a really strong team of programmers, I don't recommend it. And I don't believe any of you are like that, right? So, like that combination of skills, right? So please don't try and do something totally original. Again, the exercise is learning how to do Sprite Kit. You're using another framework altogether. You're doing your graphics in a different way that you've never done it before, right? So it's going to push you to do that. It's going to push you to make classes more than you've ever done before, classes and objects and all the other stuff. After this assignment, you should know Swift very well because you'll have to deal with it. You have no choice. There's no avoiding it. It's not a drag and drop environment that I'm talking about. This is stuff, doing stuff from scratch. And this is advanced stuff. This is like things you need to know how to do. If you can do this stuff, then making little applications should be a little easier for you. Because remember, you can mix and match. And what I mean is you can combine UI Kit with Sprite Kit. Also, please don't try and use Scene Kit. Making a 3D game is out of scope for this project. Don't try and do it. And you can't use Unity or Unreal or another game system to make your game. Okay, so that's not allowed. So no game systems. This is like Swift, Sprite Kit, iOS, and Xcode. That's what you're using. Okay, so native. Let's go over the details a little bit because I talked about what type of game you can make, but there are some details. You need a menu screen, an instruction screen, one game level, a game over screen. You must be able to score somehow, all right? Which sometimes you may not need to score, but in my case, my requirements for you must be able to score. That means you must have some kind of player health and a score. You must use your own graphic and sound, and you must use Swift, Sprite Kit, and Xcode. Okay, however you do that, on top of that, those three things you must use. So what are you building? So the menu screen, which is the game start state, if you will allow the user to get ready and display at least two options, play and instructions. So you have two buttons, play and instructions button, okay? The instruction screen will display simple rules, okay? Don't go crazy. I don't want walls of text. You can use images here, how to play the game. How do you play? Void enemies, like we're going to avoid now, right? Shoot enemies, whatever. Very simple. A gameplay screen where all the fun happens. That's the stuff we've been making last week. Last week and this week, we've been making the gameplay scene. Okay, we didn't do a menu scene, just the gameplay scene. And then a game over screen. So when the player dies, if the player wins, whatever, a game over screen. And the game over screen is going to have two options, play again, so restart, or go back to the menu. All right, so again, there's a little bit of navigation where the player can go, not too much. Some kind of avatar. I'm calling it an avatar because it could be a vehicle or character, something that moves around the screen, okay? And the main input may be a combination. It says mouse or keyboard. Obviously, you're going to use finger touches. That's not correct. This is incorrect. So some kind of touch. Touch, or I'm also going to say accelerometer. You want to really, if you really want to practice, you can use the accelerometer to move somehow, which might be good learnings for you, right? How to make the accelerometer move, because if I use the accelerometer, I can use kind of like the accelerometer to move me right and left, right? You can also use a controller because iOS, especially for iPad, I didn't tell you what you should make this game for. I didn't say it should be an iPhone game, right? You can make an iPad game if you want, okay? So this is the place where if you want to make an iPad game, a little bit of a larger screen, it's okay, right? Because you have room to do it now, right? It's like an iPhone game, but an iPad also can take that funky controller. And if you actually look at online for iPads, there is kind of a controller for iPad. And you want to see this, actually really cool. I saw it at the Apple Store, fairly recently, where you actually take a controller like this and you connect it to your iPad. So there is ways you can program this. If you're interested in learning how to do it, there's an API to tap into this thing that you can find out. It's up to you. This is your game. You can take it as far as you want it, right? So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. If you actually click here, there's the controller is half-half, and there's actually a back for this thing. right? That the iPad sits on this thing, right? So it's up to you if you want to try it out. The player's avatar may have weapons or other devices that he can use to defeat the computer-controlled enemies, but you can also use avoidance. You can also avoid the enemies somehow, like I'm going to show you today, right? So you don't have to make it violent. This whole game doesn't have to be a shooter. That's why I didn't call it a shooter game. You can make it avoidance. One year I had someone make a kitchen game where they were putting together, I think it was guacamole, right? Seriously. And they had a game to make how to put together guacamole. They had to gather the ingredients, right? And they put the ingredients together and they made guacamole, and there was a time limit. And you had cockroaches. That was the enemy. And the cockroaches couldn't get into your food. If they got into your food, spoil your food, and then you couldn't make your guacamole. So it doesn't have to be violent. You have a lot of different options here, and that's why you have to kind of do a little bit of brainstorming with your team so you can make your game the way you want to make it, right? All right, F, computer control of enemies or hazards. When I say computer control or AI, I mean random, okay? Please don't try and do pathfinding, smart AI, or anything like that. You don't have time. Now, if you have a lot of ambition, you could certainly add some more intelligence to your enemies, but don't go crazy. The enemies can't be too hard to beat, okay? It has to be beatable. And don't try and make the enemies go faster and faster. That is not a good game. I will not accept that, okay? That is actually a very poor strategy because enemies that go faster and faster become unbeatable, right? And it sucks to play. No one likes to play those kind of games that go faster and faster. There's no replayability. Sorry? Okay. But there's no replayability. I'm saying typically the replayability is low. You don't want to replay that game again. You play it one time and that's it, right? So I don't want you to make those kind of games. I want you to make a game that the enemies are difficult because they're interesting, okay? Random opportunities to generate points. Example, pickups, treasure, stuff that you can grab to make the game so that, like example, in the guacamole game, they picked up ways of making the food faster or ready-made products like they found in the kitchen to help the game finish. You know what I'm saying? That was the idea. Some kind of scoring system. So you get points every time you defeat or avoid an enemy somehow, right? Or if you get to a certain part of the level, you get some points, right? Some kind of life counter or health for your character. So if your character is a chef, going back to the guacamole game, the chef has life, right? There's enough cockroaches, they're going to eat them. I don't know, right? I'm just making this up, right? And some kind of sound effects for collisions and with enemies and collecting points and shooting attacks and all that stuff. And please add your own game soundtrack. So again, you can find this from Open Game Art. You can find your own game soundtrack. Please don't use like some classic rock and roll, right? And add it on. Don't do that. Get something from somewhere that's free. There's lots of free soundtracks and stuff that people who want to get out there, you just have to credit them. And they'll be happy to make soundtracks. There's people out there like that, right? So it can almost be an original little game you can do in a couple weeks. Almost. Okay, internal documentation we've talked about before, but this is new, and this is why you need an extra person. I want you to do a little bit of planning. I want that company logo that you guys have used before, all right? I want a table of contents, a version history, a detailed game description, and on the Dropbox, I have attached an example. I've given you an external game document template that you can fill up, okay? So I don't expect you to make your own. Fill up this document template so that it gives, and use it for planning. So as an example, I want some wireframes, some sketches that you can do in Sketch. What does your game level look like? Where are your enemies? How do you score? Label your screen as much as you can before you write any code at all, right? Think about the game I'm making right now with you guys. I have a little plane and I have the ocean. Today I'm going to show you the islands and the clouds that are going to, how we're going to score with. I'm going to create, we're going to do collisions. And next week, we're going to do this as well because I need to continue to show you stuff to help you with your game. So I'm not going to just say, go. It's not like that. I'm going to help you, right? but we need to work together on this. And that means you need to do a little bit of planning, right? So to help you with the planning, like I always do, next lab, which is next week, I want to see this document filled, right, with whatever you can put into it. That means I want to see your sketches. I want to see your idea. I want to see those things so that way you can get some credit. And it's going to force you to start thinking about it. Because if I don't force you, you're not going to do it, right? It's like if I don't pay you, you're not going to do it, right? So I'm going to pay you extra points, basically, for you to do this game design document by next week, all right? So this is going to be due next week. Talk about your game world a little bit, not too much. I don't need a lot of detail here. Point form, okay? Point form. It's got to be you to get together. This document might take you an hour max, okay? Get together, talk with your team. Someone sketch out the idea that they have for the level, some kind of inspiration about what kind of game you're making, because you're not going to make it out of the top of your head. You're going to look online and say, hey, we want to make a game like this. Something that's doable within the time you have, okay? Try and keep your scope low. I know there are people in this room that are very ambitious. I'm looking over there in this room, this area over here, right? Don't be ambitious for this game, okay? Make it as small as you can, right? Something that's doable. Do you have any weapons? And by the way, if you don't include this section. You don't have to include a section that you don't have. Maybe you don't have any weapons. Maybe you're avoiding. You don't have to fight. You don't have to shoot bullets. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking you to make something that makes you happy, right? You must use GitHub. Okay, now, optional game features. What if you're crazy and you want to include more levels? It's okay. I'm going to allow it, right? If you really want to, bonus points. I only want one level. One level. Please don't make, 20 levels. Only one. If you want to make more, bonus, right? But only do it when the first one is good, okay? Each level must be unique. So don't just try and make the same level with a different background. Oh, Tom, we're going from the forest to the mountains and it's different backgrounds, but it's exactly the same level, okay? That doesn't count. It has to be a unique goal. Why are you in the forest? What are you collecting that's different? Maybe there's different enemies, different power-ups. You don't have time for this, but just in case you want to be crazy, I put it there, okay? Include a boss monster, to defeat. Maybe you want to make it so that at the end of the first level, there's some kind of crazy multi-stage boss monster. Go ahead if you really want to. I don't recommend it, but I'm putting it here to give you ideas, right? Add power-ups for the player's avatar. Example, extra speed, some kind of shield that goes around the ship. I don't know. Add cheat codes, right? You touch on a certain part of the screen in a couple ways, and all of a sudden, you're a god, right? I don't know. You're in god mode. Create some kind of mini game. Empower the player to get an NPC, a non-player character. Make it possible for the player to save and load his game. There's lots of possibilities. I just listed a few of them that you can think about, right? And you don't have to do any of them. I'm not going to get mad if you go do nothing. If you only just do the basic game, I'll be happy, right? Here's your evaluation criteria. I broke it down into user interface, functionality, internal and external documentation, and version control. All the points are here, right? 20% of your final grades it's about 2.5 weeks when it's due. So not on the Monday, but the Friday. So please look carefully at the due date. It's not on the Monday, right? So if you notice, it's the Friday, February the 23rd at midnight, which means you have exactly or approximately 2.5 weeks and a bit, okay, to get it done. You need to start today, right? There is no time for this. If you don't start today, you will not make a game. It will not work. It will not look good. You will not be happy with yourself. And I'll be a little bit sad because you had a chance to make a game and I'm a game guy, right? So this is one of those things that's probably one of my favorite projects to make. It's not that difficult if you put your mind to it. And it can be fun for you and a lot of learning because you're going to make classes and objects and stuff and everything, all with Swift code. It'll give you a great opportunity for you to learn how to do more advanced stuff. So, questions around assignment 2. Remember, I will allow up to 4 people for this one. Even though it says 3, I will allow up to 4 because it requires that much. Please do not try and do this in a team of 2. You will be killed. I'll tell you right now, there's just too much work to do. Okay? So combine with another group. If there's another group of 2 you can combine with, do 2 and 2. Make it 4, right? That's what I recommend. I know what kind of time you guys have, and you should by now have assignment 1 from your other courses, right? If I'm not wrong. So there's really no time. Like, you're going to have this one plus other ones. I'll tell you that this assignment, it's elusively difficult. Like, it's like, how can I tell you? It looks easy because I'm going to give you piece parts. But actually, when it comes down to doing it all and putting it all together, that's the challenge. How do I put all this together to make it unique? The graphics, the sound, everything. There's too many details. Please don't wait to start. So next week, like I said, I will put up a game design document. So this game design document here, the external document, which is one part, it's worth actually 11 marks out of your 74, right? I want you to do as much of it as you can. Now, there's some parts you can't do. Like, for example, you can't take screenshots because you don't have any screenshots, right? By next week. But you can do mostly everything else. So I will give you some points for it. 2% of your final grade for next week if you get it done. If you don't get it done, I can't give you anything for it. Just like last time, it'll push you to start thinking about it. You need to get together and brainstorm with your team and think about what you're building, and this will be the incentive to do it. Any questions at all? All right, I'm going to stop recording. Yes. It's insane. Yeah, it's only if you really want to challenge yourself. Tower defense is like if you put a tower down somewhere on the map, you may drag and drop with your finger, and then there might be some enemies, and the tower automatically will fire at the enemies to kill them. And then if they come to the tower, maybe they destroy the tower, and you have to build another one. You can look at some other tower defense games. But again, I put them there just as ideas. I recommend stick with a scrolling game of some kind, a scrolling shooter. Might be the easiest kind of game you can make, right? Scrolling and shooting, right? Why? Because if you start thinking about platforming and tower defense and three-quarter down adventures and other classic arcade games, you will not finish on time, right? It's for the ambitious. It's for people who are really good programmers who've played a lot of games. I put it there just in case some of you want to do it. But if you're not a gamer or if you don't have interest, please don't. It's crazy. Stick with a scrolling shooter or a scrolling avoider or some other non-violent game. Okay? Any other questions around assignment 2? All right, that's it for assignment 2. I'm going to stop recording this one, and I'm going to start with the next demo, which is more of Sprite Kit.